Hi, everybody. Welcome to our panel today. I see people filing in. My name is Jordan Brown. We are going to just give it a couple minutes, and I am going to shamelessly stall. Shamefully, shamelessly. They mean different things, but kind of the same thing too. In the interim, definitely check out all of our virtual resources that we have on the admissions website on oxy.edu. And while people are filing in, Kaya, who's your favorite athlete
Of all time?
of all time?
Oh, that's really hard, but the first one that comes to my head is recent athlete Sydney McLaughlin. I run her event, so she is probably my favorite at the moment. But Allison Felix, of course, as well.
Allison Felix as well. That's awesome.
What about you, Jordan?
My favorite athlete is Serena Williams by a mile and a half.
Okay.
But runner-up is Fernando Tatis Jr. Because I'm a big Padres fan and he's really exciting. What about you, Shanda?
Well, Jordan, we've talked about this many times, so you know I have a similar answer to you. So definitely Serena Williams, just the length of her career, amazing athlete. I really believe she would have been good at any sport she decided to play. But thankfully for a lot of people, she chose tennis. So Serena Williams.
Absolutely. And for those who just joined, we're going over our favorite athletes while we're waiting for everyone to hop on the Zoom call before we officially get going. Joe, what about you? Who's your favorite athlete?
I'm going to go old school. My favorite athlete was Joe Dumars with the Detroit Pistons back in the day. I really appreciated his kind of quiet approach to the game, but he was lethal on the court. So yeah, Joe Dumars.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, Tyler, what about you?
I got an MMA fighter named Georges St. Pierre. So he was the UFC welterweight king for a long, long time. One of the greatest of all time for sure.
Wow. Yeah. So other than me and Shanda, we didn't have any sports that were duplicated. That was a fun exercise. And with that, it's 5:02. We're officially going to get going to the substance of the evening. Again, my name is Jordan Brown. I'm Assistant Dean of Admission and Coordinator of Student Athlete Recruitment. I also graduated from Occidental 7 years ago. I'm not quite sure where the time has gone, but I was also formerly a student athlete. We're so glad that all of you can join us. And I feel really fortunate to have an incredible group of panelists with me here tonight. I want to say a couple things at the outset. One is we have the Q&A feature going. So if we are talking about something related to sports medicine, strength and conditioning, mental health, and you have further questions, I implore, encourage, invite any and all questions through the Q&A feature. We also have 2 different admission officers working behind the scenes that will also answer your questions. One of them is a former Oxy Tiger swimming legend. So she's a former student athlete as well. So she'll be able to help out too. And I also want to acknowledge here at the outset that many of the students on this call may already be in touch with the coach, which is fantastic, but there may be some other students that haven't been in touch with the coach too. So for those students, a little bit about Occidental. We are a Division III institution. We compete in the Southern California Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, the SCIAC. We have 21 varsity sports. I really think that the fact that all of our member institutions within the SCIAC are within about an hour-and-a-half drive is awesome. So you definitely don't have to miss extended class time for really formal, high-level athletic competition. And I would encourage anyone who's listening who is interested in athletics at Oxy, who hasn't been in touch with a coach, to reach out to a coach via email. That's a totally appropriate way to start the conversation, but also to fill out one of our recruit questionnaires. So we're going to include a link to all of our recruit questionnaires, which are on the Oxy Athletics website, in the chat. So take a look at that if you haven't been in touch with a coach. Let's see. I think those are most of the housekeeping things that I wanted to get out of the way right now. And with that, I'm going to take a moment and have our awesome panelists introduce themselves. So if you want to talk about your role, how long you've been at Oxy, and what gets you excited about working at Oxy. Shanda, would you like to start?
Yes, thanks, Jordan. My name is Shanda Ness. I'm the Director of Athletics at Occidental. been here about a year and a half now. Last March, I arrived on campus. I very much enjoy working with everyone at Occidental, but in particular the student athletes. They're just very motivating. They provide a lot of energy to our department every day, and to see their commitment to their craft and the classroom is quite inspiring. So I'm inspired by our student athletes on a daily basis.
Thank you, Shanda. As am I. Joe, would you like to go?
Sure. Joe Gonzalez. I'm the Assistant Athletic Director for Sports Medicine / Head Athletic Trainer. I am in my 8th year at Occidental, and I lead a staff of 3 other certified athletic trainers. And hands down, the best part of working at Oxy for me is working with the student athletes. I've worked at a number of different levels with athletes at a number of different levels, from professional all the way down to high school. And I just absolutely love the collegiate setting, but most specifically working with the students at Occidental. They're just fantastic.
Absolutely. And as a former student at Occidental, my classmates were my favorite part of the experience. And now having the privilege of being able to interact with students as well is something that I don't take for granted. So that's going to be a common refrain, I'm sure, throughout the evening. All right, Tyler, can you introduce yourself?
Thanks, Jordan. My name is Tyler Yamaguchi. I've been here at Oxy since 2008. So I'm going on 13 years now. It's been so much fun. I coach track and field and also strength and conditioning. My main forte in track and field is the sprints. I know there's a few sprinters on the call, so hello. What do I love about coaching at Oxy and working at Oxy? Why have I been here for so long? And this is something that both Shanda and Joe have already mentioned, but the student athletes here are just spectacular. I think they bring a different level of or a different approach to athletics and sport in general. They're not just people who go out and play or compete. They're people who really spend some time honing their craft. I think they see athletics as a means to improve their lives as a whole. I also love the mission of Occidental College, small liberal arts institution in an urban setting, somewhere where folks can really explore who they are as people and explore perhaps where they want their lives to go. Maybe they thought they wanted to go in direction A, and by the time they've gone through Oxy, they want to go in a totally different direction, because LA affords you so many opportunities to explore where you are good and perhaps where you want to go in the future.
Absolutely. And the fact that Oxy gives you the latitude to change your mind and what you may be interested in was certainly something that was the case for me as someone who maybe changed their major 9 times. And we've already talked a lot about our students, and we're really, really lucky to have Kaya with us today. Kaya, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for listening in. My name is Kaya. I'm a senior here at Oxy, and I am a sprinter on the track and field team. I am an economics and politics double major and a campaign semester alumni. And athletics definitely brought me to Oxy. I was sent a letter in the mail by Tyler and Dave, some of the track coaches. And after being exposed to that, it kind of checked off all of the boxes that I saw in a college. And I am really glad that I came, just because of all of the things that Shanda and Joe said and Tyler about the students here at Oxy.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Kai, and thank you again to all of our panelists for joining us this evening. I am particularly excited. I think very often in the recruiting process, our prospective students get to meet with coaches, but the fact that we're able to share more about our sports medicine program, our strength and conditioning program, mental health resources at the recruiting stage, and highlight our tremendous resources that are available here at Oxy, I think is an awesome opportunity to take advantage of right now. So again, I'm really excited for the ensuing conversation. And I think with that, I'd love to start with Joe. Can you talk a little bit about your philosophy around sports medicine at Oxy and why that's something that students should be interested in even at the recruiting stage?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jordan. So I think in order to understand the philosophy that we have in sports medicine, take a look at our mission statement that we have. And our mission statement says this, is that the sports medicine staff is committed to the overall student athlete experience at Occidental And we do that through a critical passion for the delivery of high quality and whole person healthcare. Now, if we break down that mission statement, I just want to point out a few sections in there because I think it really illustrates what we're all about. So first of all, that we're committed to the exceptional overall experience of our student athletes. We understand that being an athlete is so important to the students at Occidental who choose to participate in our varsity programs. And so as the sports medicine staff, we understand that we play a huge part in that, in the athletics, experience. Athletes don't like to think about getting injured. They don't like to think about having to miss time out of practice or out of competition, right? But we understand that that's going to happen. And so our staff really takes seriously the role that we play in helping our student athletes through that rough time. If they do get injured, if they do need to take some time to sit out, or even if they need some guidance just in how to perform at their best. We really place a high emphasis on being a part of that exceptional experience for our student athletes. The next part of that mission statement is the critical passion part. I've been really fortunate to have been able to have selected our athletic training staff. So Lauren, Brian, and Haley, who all work with me, they're talented and skilled athletic trainers to begin with. But on top of that, they're fantastic people. They're fantastic people to work with. And it really shows in the way that they build relationships with our student athletes. And, Kaya's probably going to speak a little bit later. She might be able to talk about her experience with Lauren. She's smiling already when she hears Lauren's name. Our athletic training staff has a passion for not just doing the sports medicine side of it, but also for working with our student athletes on a personal level and getting to know them and using that to really build a strong relationship to do the sports medicine side of things. The next part is high quality healthcare services. My background is in Division I athletics. I was at Division I athletics for about 15 years before I came to Occidental. And at that level, there's a lot of pressure and a lot of stress to get your medical services quickly, right? Like I'm talking about, you get injured, you've got to see the doctor and get an MRI and get it read all on the same day. When I came to Occidental, my idea was to bring that type of urgency to medical services to the Division III level and to Occidental. And that's something that we strive to do, is to really have some quality healthcare services for our student athletes. We've got a great staff of team physicians as well. Our head team orthopedist, Dr. Adamson, I think is going on his 29th or 30th year with us now at Occidental. So he gets Oxy student athletes, and that helps a lot. We have another team physician who is our head team internist, who is also a team physician for the Dodgers. We have our team neurologist who helps us, with concussions, as you know, which is a big topic in sports. I've known him since my time at Division I. He's also the team neurologist for several sports teams in LA, including the LA Rams. So to be able to have those high quality medical providers on our side helping us with student athletes is huge. The last part is the whole person healthcare services. And we talked about this earlier. Tyler was talking about the type of students we get at Occidental, the type of student athletes we get. We're not just focused on getting them back out on the playing field or on the court or in the pool for their practice or competition, but we really try to take a whole person approach. And that comes from knowing our student athletes. That comes from developing those relationships with them before they get injured, so that we have that foundation of trust built already. And so that when we do work with them, like I said, we have that foundation of trust. We can use that to draw upon our work in trying to get them back to what they want to do. We look at it from a more a view of totality rather than this is just an athlete we're trying to get back.
Thank you so much, Joe. And I know Shanda's going to talk about in a second just kind of her view of the student athlete experience, which I think mirrors some of the things you were talking about. But I also want to acknowledge that you mentioned Lauren, Haley, and Brian, and I'm glad you did, because I've been able to have the privilege of observing you four work from a distance, but you all strike me as a team in the best sense of the word. So I know we're really lucky to be staffed the way we are, and I know that our student athletes really appreciate them a lot. Shanda, can you talk a little bit about the role sports medicine plays in like the broader success of our athletic department?
Yeah, of course. I want to first reiterate, Jordan, what you just said a little bit. Joe and his staff are simply the best. They're extremely good at what they do. They're very kind, very supportive, very knowledgeable, have a very professional approach to our sports medicine, which is extremely appreciated by our student athletes. I think you could speak to any number of student athletes and get many of the same sentiments that I just shared. So first I wanted to say that. But the role is extremely important. First, from a preventative side, there's many things that they're going to be able to do and help you with to prevent you from getting injured. And I know that's coming up a little bit more on the strength and conditioning side of things as well. But I think that that's a preventative is important, but also connecting with student athletes when they're in a situation that is frustrating and hard and challenging. No student athlete wants to be injured. Oftentimes it adds to their stressful day and things like that. So I think their role is extremely important in getting our student athletes through a situation that is challenging for them, and doing it, as I mentioned before, in a kind, supportive, knowledgeable manner. Is very important for them. And like I said, just a huge part of our department, and I know our student athletes really appreciate them.
Thanks, Shanda. Now that we have a sense of kind of how sports medicine fits into the larger picture, I'd love to hear from Kaya on like a more practical level of what your experience has been like with sports medicine in terms of any experiences you've had.
Yeah, of course. I have had a really close relationship with the athletic training staff at Oxy. 3 weeks before the fall of my junior year, I had a major surgery done. So you could imagine coming from your hometown and then going back to Oxy after 3 weeks of just having had surgery. I needed a lot of guidance at that point. I needed to see a doctor near the area and eventually go to physical therapy and return to practice. And so there was a lot that had to happen that I felt like was out of my hands. I was also trying to be a full-time student at the same time. So I have worked with Lauren every day for a long duration of time. And I think what Joe says is really true, is that the athletic trainers try and work with the athletes on a very personal level as well. So anytime that I was frustrated about even the process of finding a physical therapist or not being able to practice, and if that's like what I want the most, Lauren was really attentive to my needs. And I never felt like I was just one of the athletes I worked with. Whenever I came into the training room and went into her office, it was like the only thing in the world that she was dealing with at that moment was me. And I think that that is really important, because it's a testament to how careful the athletic trainers are about each individual student and how much they care about the progress of every single athlete that walks in and out of that training room. So I've had an amazing experience with all the athletic trainers. If Lauren isn't there, Joe will come over and help me out or answer a question I have. And I've had some experiences with the others there as well. So yeah.
Thank you, Kaya, for sharing your experience. I asked that question somewhat blindly. I actually didn't know if you had experience. So I really appreciate you being vulnerable.
I have a lot, actually.
Oh, no. Well, Tyler, do you think we could pivot and talk a little bit about strength and conditioning at Oxy and sort of what that looks like and the ways you partner with our varsity teams?
Absolutely. So, yeah, at our level, you know, from a strength and conditioning perspective, we see people who come from a range of athletic abilities and athletic backgrounds. So I think one of our main focuses during the season and even during the preseason time is just meeting athletes where they're at, you know, in their journey. And so we've got folks who literally have been doing their sports since they were 5 years old, and they've been in the weight room since they were 11, and they had a private coach, you know, in middle school and high school. And then we've got folks who have never even been in a weight room in their entire lives, right? And so our job as a strength and conditioning staff is to figure out, okay, well, this athlete here needs X and this athlete here needs Y, and we need to be very diligent about you know, giving those athletes what they need, because we cannot treat all athletes the same. So, whether or not you're a seasoned pro or a complete amateur in the weight room, we are more than happy to work with you. So we do have a number of, including myself, we have a number of assistant strength and conditioning coaches as well. Every team is assigned a coach. So you kind of have a point person to go to at all times. That coach will be responsible for kind of liaising with the head coaches, and we can get into that a little later, but they will discuss exactly what the goals of that program are. And then a lifting and strength and conditioning system will be designed around those needs. And that coach will be in charge of running the sessions and again, writing the training.
Awesome. Thank you, Tyler. I know I came to Oxy as a very physically weak person, and I left not so extremely physically weak, but only slightly physically weak. So I was grateful to the strength and conditioning for that.
Awesome.
Yeah. Shanda, in your role as athletic director, but also as someone who coached for many years, what's your perspective on strength and conditioning and how it is related to our success?
Yeah, I mean, I think strength and conditioning is really important. I spoke to this a little bit earlier, but it can be a factor in preventing injuries and those types of things, just to make sure you're conditioned and in shape. But ultimately, everyone wants to come to college and compete and reach their full potential. And I think the strength and conditioning and the weight room can play a part in that for our student athletes. So that's our goal. Speaking to what Tyler was saying, to help each athlete reach their full potential, whether they come in as been in the weight room a lot or not. Our goal is to help everyone reach that ultimate goal. So strength and conditioning can play a large factor in that. We recently committed to some new programming and things for our student athletes in hopes to help with the virtual setting. Maybe Tyler can speak to that a little bit more specifically than myself, but we did that because strength and conditioning touches all of our students. All of our student athletes are involved in strength and conditioning and feel it's a priority to, again, help them reach their full potential. So Tyler, do you want to speak a little bit more about the program?
Sure. So we recently invested in a system called PUSH, P-U-S-H. So PUSH, it's kind of a two-part system. Number one, there's some hardware involved, which your sons and daughters are not required to purchase. So we have some hardware that allows for some movement tracking, basically, and that information, that data is kind of synced up with their platform. But as of right now, so that only happens when we're in person. But as of right now, what PUSH allows us to do is to write strength and conditioning programs and send them out to student athletes, and they can access those programs on their mobile devices. And so because mobile devices are so ubiquitous nowadays, practically everyone has one, so they have access to the app. And strength coaches, it's a little easier for us to just write out the programs, on a computer instead of, and we have done that in the past, but we've used Excel and it's a little cumbersome. So now it's much more pretty. Obviously, this generation will appreciate having access to their training just on their cell phone or mobile device. And yeah, they can just, it's very seamless. The integration has been pretty easy for us, actually. And yeah, it's a spectacular platform. And I think it shows the student athletes, most importantly, that we are invested in their success, even when we're remote.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Shanda. Thank you for elaborating, Tyler. That's awesome that we are able to have those programs available to our students remotely. And that's a good segue to Kaya. Have you been able to participate in something like that? And I guess in general, what's your experience with strength and conditioning been like?
Yeah, so I was one of those students, like Tyler said, that I had barely touched a weight room in my life before coming to Oxy. So coming to Oxy and being a student athlete was really exciting because I felt like it was at such a high level of training. But also what comes with that is I never felt like I was left behind because of the support from the coaches, like individual support, and also from fellow team members and maybe juniors or seniors who had already been through this process. And I always felt like I was never left behind, but more so that I was just encouraged to catch up with everyone else who already knew how to do all these fancy like barbell squats. And also the push system now is like Shanda and Tyler were saying, is something that they can connect with us, which is really great because we all have this uncertainty about sports, and sports are really important in our lives. Like strength and conditioning is one of my favorite parts of the day at Oxy. I love practice. I love being with the team, and it genuinely is my favorite part of the day. So it's nice to know that our coaches are still invested in us and still care about us. And I have been able to do the workouts that I am able to do. I'm still recovering from that crazy injury a year ago, but it's been a really easy and seamless platform for me to just look at what the workouts are and be able to do the ones that I can do.
Thank you. That's great to hear firsthand that the rollout was smooth and you are able to actually execute these exercises remotely. That's fantastic. Joe, I'd love to go back to you and talk a little bit about mental health resources that are available for our student athletes. I know there's been more of a partnership with Emmons, our health center, in the past year or so. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Sure. So, as we know, mental health has become a huge point of attention and focus in athletics, and especially in collegiate athletics. And that's something that we really work to address at Occidental at different levels. So, we have a wide spectrum of resources available to our student athletes. But before I kind of point them out, I will say that, at Occidental, you'll hear about this term of a culture of care, right, at Occidental. And what that is it's, everybody from, professors and faculty to staff members to administrators, coaches, anybody who works at Oxy with our students and our student athletes. They create this network of support for Oxy students, so that we're always in a position to be able to offer that support and help students. And so you'll hear that a lot at Oxy. You'll hear that a lot in the Division of Student Affairs, and you'll really hear that a lot in the athletics department, because we all play a role in creating that network of support. But more specifically, in terms of the resources, we have our psychologists and therapists up at the Emmons Wellness Center that we have a great relationship with, where our student athletes can get appointments on campus and speak to a licensed psychologist, a licensed counselor, if they need to. More specific to athletics, we actually have one of our counselors, Rich Estrada, who has actually been assigned to the athletics department to help us out specifically with our student athletes. One of the great programs that he initiated, or that we initiated with him last semester, were walk-in hours for our student athletes. And he started conducting these, no appointment needed walk-in hours within the athletics facilities, so that if student athletes wanted to talk informally to a therapist, whether they had a big question on their mind or if they just wanted to get some information, they were able to walk in, no appointment, and have a closed door discussion with him and get the answers that they needed. Now, since we went remote, that didn't stop Rich. He moved it to virtual. And so he's been having these virtual walk-in sessions continuing on even through this semester with our student athletes so that they can get that support. We have other resources as well. I mean, even within our athletic department, we've got our athletic training staff, my staff that I lead. We have the skills to work with our athletes to identify certain signs and symptoms, and to be able to refer them to the person who needs to kind of support them the best way at that time. Our coaches as well. Last year, our coaches went through a mental health first aid training. And that's something that we're looking to do every 2 years, and so it's just making our athletic staff more knowledgeable and aware of what to be looking out for to help our student athletes and get them referred to the right person. The last thing I'll talk about is the student success team, which is on campus at Occidental. Now, the student success team works out of the Dean of Students office, and it's a group of administrators whose job is to identify students who are in need of help and need of support, whether that means they need support academically or if they need support on a personal level. And that group is made up of different administrators from different areas on campus. So, we have our counselors in there. We have the Dean of Students in there. We've got housing in there. We've got faculty on that committee. I'm on that committee representing athletics. And so we have a lot of eyes all over the campus to be able to reach out and see if someone needs support, and then we can reach out and help them. So it's good that I'm on that committee because I have a good relationship with all of our athletes, or if I don't know the athlete, my staff does, and we'll be able to reach out to them and support them in the best way we can.
Thank you so much, Joe. And I'm really glad you mentioned the partnership with Rich, the student success team, and the culture of care, because I think that all really speaks to a broader theme around the sense of community that we have on campus and the kind of relationship-based culture that drives our interactions and really tries to lift each other up. Shanda, anything you would want to add about our department's approach to understanding mental health?
I mean, Joe did a really nice job of explaining the different, I guess, levels of care and the resources that we have for our student athletes. But just one thing to add is we talk about this as a staff and in having the mind, body, spirit approach to our athletic department, and understanding that your role is not just one of those. It's not, just physically making our student athletes better isn't enough, but making sure that we're paying attention to the mind, body, and the spirit, and helping them be successful in all those areas is very important for our student athlete experience and student athlete development through their time on campus.
Awesome, thank you. And related to kind of the spirit of collaboration that we were referencing before, I guess, Tyler, can you go into a little bit more detail around what it looks like to collaborate with head coaches of other teams in designing a strength and conditioning program that's working to kind of maximize those student athletes for their sport?
Yeah, absolutely. So clearly there are some things that different sports are going to share in common when it comes to strength and conditioning. With that being said, though, specificity, I think, sport specificity is always our goal. And so we want to make sure that we're doing right by the student athletes and designing a program that works for their sport. So clearly the track and field team should not be doing the same type of strength and conditioning that, for instance, the golf team may be doing, or the tennis team. They're just very different sports. So we do meet with head coaches to discuss what some of their goals are. Now, some head coaches are a little more hands-off, and they say to us, listen, you're the expert. I will trust you to do what's right for my team. And some coaches are very hands-on because perhaps they had prior experience at a different institution. They've been coaching for a number of years. They know what's worked for their team. And as strength coaches, we try our best to make sure that, we take those opinions into account when we are coming up with a strength and conditioning program. So this dialogue continues throughout the year. And from year to year. So, if the coach, the head coach of the team feels that something's not working in the weight room, we've got to dial it back. We've got to push a little harder. We want to introduce this exercise or that exercise. We want to take something away. We're more than happy to listen to feedback throughout the season to make sure that we act as, a supplement to the team, and we don't start driving the ship. We want to kind of be in the background, and Shanda mentioned something very important earlier, which was the injury prevention side. So, that is a very, very large piece of our puzzle that we're trying to solve as strength coaches, is making sure that folks, not only do they stay healthy in the weight room, but more importantly, or as important, they stay healthy on the playing field or on the track or out on the cross country course, whatever it may be, that could arguably be the number one goal, because it doesn't matter if a student athlete is bigger, faster, stronger, if they're sitting on the sideline because they're hurt, right? So goal number one is to make sure they are out there and they are competing, and then we kind of build layers on top of that.
Thank you. That's a really helpful way of kind of understanding and framing what strength and conditioning looks like. And it's also, I think, a parallel to a question I wanted to ask Joe. What does that communication look like between yourself and coaches when there's an athlete on a team that's undergoing rehabilitation?
Yeah, the communication is key, right? And we talked about collaboration earlier, and that's what's so important. And I really like that we, as a staff, you know, coaches and athletic trainers, really have this collaborative nature to our relationship. So we're able to work together really to the benefit of the student athlete and making sure that we have their best interests in mind. But communication is so important. You know, we provide injury reports, status updates to our coaching staff very frequently. We meet with them. You know, the nice thing about our facility is that we're so close to each other. So we're able to walk over to the coach's office and give them an in-person update on what's going on. It's easy for us to go out onto the field or the court or on the pool deck and give an update, you know, up to the minute update on what's going on with their student athlete. Yeah, I mean, a variety of ways. Sometimes, you know, we do it, you know, through our electronic medical records system. Sometimes we just do it through verbal communication, phone calls, you know, you name it. And we're all about making sure that we're staying in communication so that everyone understands what the status is moving forward.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. And I think where you all are located is also so central too. I think it probably physically makes things easier to be so near all the teams that are practicing or competing. Kaya, I'd love to go back to you and just, you know, reflecting on my own college search, which was at this point many years ago. I'm hearing a lot about things now on this webinar that I didn't know much about as a prospective student. Are there other parts of the athletic experience that you know about now that you wish you knew as a prospective student that you could share? And if there's anything else that you wanted to add around the conversations around mental health, strength and conditioning, or sports medicine, go for it.
Definitely. I think that being a student athlete, especially at Occidental, comes with time management, like especially with the academic rigor at Oxy, you learn time management really quickly. And I think for some students that are deciding whether to participate in a sport or not, that can be kind of intimidating. You're not sure if you want to commit to that much time. But one thing that I have experience on now that I wish I would have known is just the benefit of having that team network. Is so beyond, it's so worth it. It's so beyond whether the decision of whether to spend so much time on a sport or not. I think that I wish I would have known that the people that I would meet and the experiences that I would have are so unique and so special. And you just don't get this kind of experience at any other time in your life. It's different than high school sports. It's different than after you graduate. Even it's different than professional sports. It's such a unique thing to be a student athlete at Oxy. And I don't think you can really tell someone that. You have to experience it at Occidental for yourself. But I wish there was some way that someone could have told me that this was going to be an incredible experience, because I think that anyone who is on the fence should definitely participate in the sport that they want to.
Awesome. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely it was the highlight of my college experience, being able to be on a team and be able to meet people on other teams as well. And when a quarter of your students are student athletes, you are going to know student athletes on every single. All right, so I think we're going to go over some questions that were submitted in the Q&A. This is another your questions in the Q&A, and we're going to try to address as many as we can right now. And the first one will go to Joe. Are athletic trainers available at all times during and after practice?
Yeah, great question. So our standard of practice is that we have an athletic trainer on campus for all practices, and competitions, okay? And so what that translates into is that we're usually opening up around 5:45 in the morning, and we're probably closing up about 9:30 in the evening. So a long day for us, but we do have someone there during all practices and competitions. We are there, you know, after that last practice, we're there for about 30 minutes before we close up shop and lock up the door. But we make sure that, you know, everyone's getting the treatment they need, get any kind of injury assessments, or just come in and getting their ice wrapped on before they leave the facilities after practice.
Great, thank you. And Kaya, can you talk about how maybe even when you're not injured, but you know want ice or something, what that process is like to be able to get ice or go in the, is it the cold bathtub? I mean, I don't, the whirlpool? I don't know the technical term. That's definitely not what it's called.
Yeah, it's really quick and easy. So after practice, the training room is always open, and athletes are encouraged to stretch and come get ice or go in the whirlpool if you want. And then if you want to see an athletic trainer individually, you just email them at any time and say, hey, can I come see you at this time? And then they will respond and say yes or no, and then you work out a time. And so it's really easy to get in contact and have an appointment with an athletic trainer as well.
That's awesome. Thank you. And this is a question that I've actually had before, and I'd love to, again, go back to Joe. For student athletes interested in athletic training, is it possible to shadow or volunteer, or what does it look like to maybe be a part of the team and a student as a student?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. We do have a staff of student workers that help out the athletic training staff. We have my assistant Lauren is in charge of managing our student workers. She has a whole process of applying to work with us. You know, our students who are interested fill out an application, they interview with us as a staff, and then we make a decision as to who we want to bring on to help us out for that semester or for that year.
And then either Shanda, you may be able to weigh in on this. Do we have sports psychologists that are available for our student athletes? Is there any sports psychologist that works with our student athletes?
Not unless a coach, we don't have a sports psychologist on staff per se, unless a coach were to arrange a session with their team or reach out to them per sport. We don't have one individual on staff. Joe, have you worked with?
No, not on staff, Shanda.
I know relatedly, some of our coaches are really good at like mental images and meditation and mindfulness. And so there are aspects of that I think seep into the athletic experience too. Shanda, today was actually a pretty exciting day. On Instagram, we released our One Tiger, Many Stripes logo. It's a new slogan for Occidental Athletics. I know I'm super, super excited about it. Can you share a little bit about what that slogan means?
Yes, of course, Jordan. Yeah, great timing. We just released that today. So in thinking about the culture in Occidental and that we want to portray and want others to like recognize in us, we had previously had a slogan that we used. It's still a great slogan, nothing wrong with that slogan, but we wanted something that could talk more about like inclusivity and things along those lines. So we came up with the slogan, One Tiger, Many Stripes. One Tiger identifies the idea that we are all in this together, that it's not just about one team or one student athlete, that you do have support and that we support each other and lift each other up, and that's the goal. So that's the One Tiger. The Many Stripes represents the fact that our student athletes come to us with many different experiences. And it's important to honor those experiences and recognize those experiences to allow them to be their authentic selves and be the best student athletes they can be, and also to allow them to have the best student athlete experience they can have. So that's where the many stripes came from. So we released that logo today. I'm really proud of it. I think it represents our athletic department in the way that we want to be representative, and speaks to the inclusive, safe environment that we want to promote within athletics.
Thank you so much, Shanda. And it's a pretty sharp logo as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and chat the link to the Instagram post so you all can see it. I know I'm counting the days until I maybe get a t-shirt if I'm lucky enough. But that's again a pretty exciting day for Oxy Athletics. Tyler, I just want to, I mean, you've been a coach here for a long time, I guess. Is there any advice that you have for prospective students thinking about being a Division III athlete?
Yes. I could probably talk for about an hour about that. But Kaya, I'm so glad that you brought up the fact that you are grateful for your experience, and that's so, it's really, really nice to hear that, you know, and it seems to come from a very genuine place. So first of all, I would say that if you're having doubts, give it a shot. You know, that's number one. I think that, you know, people, including myself, can be plagued by fear sometimes. They choose not to just try something because they're afraid of what may or may not happen. I have found a better way to live life is to kind of take the bull by the horn, so to speak, and just get after it and give it a shot, because who knows, it might be a life-changing experience for the better. And I'm so happy to say that I know countless individuals, Kaya included, who have found this to be a life-changing experience. And you've gotten many wedding invitations from folks who met their future spouses on teams, future partners on the team. And it's so cool to see that, you know, Oxy Athletics was that big a part of their athletic experience. Speaking on a kind of a more, you know, micro level, a more immediate time frame. Listen, I saw a couple of questions out there about getting in touch with coaches and how do I do that, and should I do that? How do I go about this? Listen, I feel like I can speak for pretty much all the coaches on staff. We would love to hear from you. If you haven't been in touch with us yet, all of our contact information is on the Oxy Athletics website. Please go ahead and reach out, and you know, all it takes is an email, and we're more than happy to speak with you, you know, point you in the right direction, guide you, whatever it is that you need help with. We're here for you to help you along this journey. I know that looking for a college, you know, the place where you're going to spend the next 4 years of your life can be a daunting experience, to say the least. There's a lot of unknowns out there, and you know, we have a decent amount of experience in that universe, and so I think we do have a lot of information to offer. And even if you ultimately don't choose Oxy as your future home, we want to make sure that we give you the information to make the right decision for you, because it doesn't help anybody if we somehow con you into attending Oxy and then you hate it. No, we want to make sure that Oxy is the right place for you. And if it's not, then we're happy to give you whatever information that you need to make the right decision.
Thank you so much, Tyler. And I would also just like to reiterate that I'm happy to avail myself to all of you. If you like need help introing to a coach, I just put my email address in the chat, and I'm happy to facilitate any introductions. I think there's another question in here that Joe would like to address. Go for it, Joe.
Yeah, there was a question that came through. Are there medical expenses associated with receiving help from the athletic trainers? No, there is not. The services that we, the athletic training staff, provide are free of charge to our student athletes. If you're active on one of our team rosters, you are more than welcome to come into the athletic training room and get the help that you need. I will add on to just, some of the services that we do provide, because it's important to understand that, obviously we evaluate your injuries, we help with treatments. What does that mean? We have a lot of the typical modalities that you would find in a physical therapy setting, right? We have our electrical stim machines and ultrasounds and game readies, our whirlpools, hot and cold, things like that. But it's really been important to me in my time at Oxy to really also develop our sports medicine staff with skills to be able to do more for our athletes. For example, we're all certified in the Graston technique. So we have the Graston technique tool so that we can do that soft tissue work on our student athletes. One of the newest things that we added just last semester was blood flow restriction. We have a blood flow restriction unit in the athletic training room that we are trained to use. And I'll tell you right now, like we're the only sports medicine department in our conference that has that. That's the type of modality that you'll see at the Division I or pro level. We have that at Oxy, and we're trained to use that. And so our athletes get to have access to that type of treatment modalities at no charge.
Thank you so much, Joe.
Sorry, Jordan, I'll add in one more thing. Sorry to cut you off. Our team physicians, we also have our team physicians who come into the athletic training room on a weekly basis to do free injury assessments for our athletes. And, as you can imagine, that's been huge for our student athletes who don't have to leave campus. They can just swing by the athletic training room, get their evaluation done on Wednesday evening, and then head out the door and head back to their class, their study group, whatever it is they have to get to. So that's been huge for us. We usually get about 4 physicians at least coming in every Wednesday evening. We get our top orthopedist, Dr. Adamson, who's been with us for almost 30 years. I mean, he's coming in every Wednesday to see our athletes and get them the evaluation they need. If our student athletes do need to get an x-ray, any kind of diagnostic testing like that, then of course we have to set up for them to go off campus. But at least we can get our physicians' eyes on them, and they can get a diagnosis, on that evening.
No, thank you, Joe. Thanks again for reiterating all of the different resources and modalities that are available to our student athletes. We're nearing the end. I think it would be kind of nice to end on a more lighthearted question. So we'll just go around the horn, and I would love to know what your favorite spot is on campus and why. Kaya, why don't you go first? Unless you don't know, and then we can go to someone else.
No, I do. Actually, my favorite spot on campus is around the baseball field. So there's this little loop that goes around the baseball field that on the off season, I love to run around. And then there's this long set of stairs that you can kind of do some workouts on. And then up at the top, there's this beautiful view of the outspread of LA. And when the sun is setting, it's really beautiful. And that has always been my spot.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, the baseball field around Sunset, it's literally picturesque. Tyler, what about you?
Yeah, my first thought was very similar to that. So the lower soccer field, which is right above the baseball field. And I only say the lower soccer field because in the springtime, we use that as our javelin facility. So we spend a lot of time up there, getting ready for track meets and whatnot. And geez, yeah, when the sun goes down and you're overlooking LA, it is really a sight to behold.
Yeah, there's tremendous views for sure. Joe?
Okay, at the risk of sounding really cheesy here, I'm going to say my favorite location really is in the athletic training room. I absolutely love being around my staff. I love working with them every day. For athletes who have utilized athletic training services before, you know that the athletic training room is just like this hub of activity within athletics, right? Where there's so many athletes coming in and out and coaches coming in. So just to have, to be around all that activity, to be around all those people, you know, we all are doing our own thing, but all working toward the goal of being the best athletics department that we can be. There's no other place that I would rather be. And it does help that our brand new, beautiful pool is just right out our back door of the training room. So I can always just prop open that back door and just look down on that gorgeous pool.
Yep, that pool is gorgeous. Shanda, why don't you go? And then also, I want to make sure you have the last word. So if there's anything else you'd just like to leave our student athletes with.
Sure. I mean, everything they mentioned, there are many beautiful places on the campus, actually. But similarly to what Joe said, I love to be out on Patterson Field and the different sports going on. Oh, look at him. And, you know, the new pool, the new tennis courts, it's a great location. They're all right there. So I love that part. And I guess just in closing, you know, I would just like to emphasize that we're very lucky in our athletic department. We have a great staff that are very invested in all of you watching, having an amazing student athlete experience. There's a lot of support on our campus for you to have the best experience possible, and hope for, you know, you continue to view Oxy as a wonderful option for you. And please, you know, contact us and reach out if you have questions after this.
Well, thank you so much, Shanda. We got to acknowledge we have a new member of the panel. We have Kaysen.
Hi, everybody.
That's awesome. Class of 2038.
Something like that.
All right. Well, on behalf of my panelists, want to thank all of you for taking the time to spend an hour with us. There's obviously a lot going on. There's certainly a lot going on as it relates to the college search layered on with the pandemic. So I definitely want to reiterate that I'm happy to help any way I can. Thank you again so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. I also want to just express my deep gratitude to all of the panelists. Thank you all for joining me today. I really appreciated your insights, and I know I learned a lot. A couple things that I wanted to just mention. Continue to go to oxy.edu for more preview Occidental sessions. We have our second student athlete session the first week of November. That's going to highlight different leadership opportunities within the department. So you'll be able to hear from more current student athletes as well. So that is particularly exciting. Reminder to check out our student chats, which again, you can register for on the admission page of oxy.edu. And with that, thank you all so much.
Bye. Bye.